And as we've said, had a busy campaign schedule on to Detroit, Milwaukee, and Waterloo, Iowa tonight. Governor Bush is in Florida all day. We're going to take you from that scene live to the MCI Center here in Washington, D.C., where a Ralph Nader super rally, as the Green Party is calling it, is just about to get underway. And among the speakers, Phil Donahue, who is our guest here this morning. Ralph Nader scheduled to speak at about 2:30 East Coast time. And again, we'll have live coverage of Governor Bush in Florida later this afternoon as we continue on this all-politics weekend. One other reminder, too, go to cspan.org for the latest on schedule information of the candidates and our C-SPAN program information. Back now to the MCI Center here in Washington.
The donkey is something that, a robot or a monkey or a dog could choose. To be able to use your gift of reasoning, your mind, and look at, what somebody's saying, using your senses, and then equating that to a decision at the end of the day is what anybody should do in the voting process. This A or B, especially when it comes down to candidates running like it's some big popular rally. I mean, really, that's a way and a thing of the past, and a lot of us can't look at the past as being much better days. All right? So let's look ahead to look at better days, and let's look at more options, and truly have something that represents the people. A strong third party should actually, deal with the issues of education and health care, opportunities when it comes down to people of color, opportunities in business and participation in government, opportunities in sharing the wealth of the land. A lot of people are saying a vote for Nader is a non-vote for Gore, which is a vote for George Mingle Bush. But I would also encourage people to say that another party has to be built.
Good afternoon. I'm Reverend Graylin Hagler. I am pastor of Plymouth Congregational United Church of Christ here in Washington, D.C., and I am development director of the Neighborhood Assistance Corporation, which is a neighborhood stabilization organization with 22 offices across the country. And everybody keeps coming to me and saying, what do you think about the elections? And I have to respond, what elections? My issues are not being addressed. The issues of working people in America is not being addressed. Nobody is addressing the issues of where I live, where my community lives, except for Ralph Nader, except for Ralph Nader. What elections? The only elections I see are being run by big business and pollsters and people who are trying to tell us what to think and what to believe and what are the issues of the day, and it just doesn't ring true. I see a campaign being run by Chevron and Texaco and the drug companies and Terry Mary at the banks in New England at Fleet Bank and all the other bankers trying to tell us what to believe while they steal homes away from the elderly. What elections are you talking about? You're talking about greed. You're talking about greed. And you're talking about folks who are just stealing this country away from the people who really need to be heard. Ralph Nader, LaDuke. Ralph Nader, LaDuke. Ralph Nader.
Thank you. Thank you. I am pleased to join you and millions of other Americans, people of conscience, all in enthusiastically supporting the candidacy of Ralph Nader and Winona LaDuke for president and vice president. I first met Ralph Nader in 1965 on the occasion of the publication of Unsafe at Any Speed. Here was a young Harvard lawyer fresh from law school, And because he had published or was about to publish a book critical of a General Motors product, General Motors sent women after him. This is a true story. General Motors law firm hired a gumshoe outfit from New York, and they had women follow Ralph into supermarkets and into drugstores. One curvaceous young woman walked up to him at the produce counter and said, "Would you mind coming back to my apartment to help me rearrange my furniture?" This is a true story. General Motors did this, and down from the mountain and the air-conditioned office comes the chairman of the board and chief executive officer of the largest industrial corporation on earth, James Roach. And he went before the United States Senate, and in the full glare of television Klieg lights, he apologized to Ralph Nader, and the modern consumer movement was born. I am pleased to join you today because, like you, I join Ralph in high indignation at the realization that corporate America has taken over our presidential campaign season, indeed our entire elective process, and we're going to put an end to it right now. We gave each of the major parties each $68 million of our money this year so that they could have a campaign free of all the dialing for dollars, free of the begging, free of the soft money from corporations. Let them debate the issues, we said. We'll give you the money. And we did. And they have both broken campaign finance law by raising another $400 million. The parties are doing this. $400 million. Last Tuesday, you could look it up, as Casey would say. You could look it up. Last Tuesday, this Tuesday, the Republicans raised $2.2 million and the Democrats $1.1 million on Tuesday. There are people out there writing $200,000 checks for both parties. And this is why the major parties are focused on the people in the boardrooms, the CEOs, and they've turned their back on the American people. They don't need us. They get their money from someone else. We're going to stop it. This will be the last year that will happen because of the Nader-LaDuke ticket. We, very briefly, Americans have looked up to discover that the campaign debates, the signature event of the campaign season, have been bought for and paid for and sold to corporate America. And when they got the debates, they took them away from the League of Women Voters, and they got the tent, and they got the stage, and they and their operatives locked arms, circled the stage, and they don't want anybody else in there. Nobody else. Imagine, these corporate donors are able to shower 2 horses with millions of dollars. They're like the house, they're like the casino. They can't lose. They have covered both horses, showering them with campaign cash. The last thing Anheuser-Busch or AT&T or any corporation in America wants is Ralph Nader on that stage. This is not the way it's supposed to work. Corporations don't make this decision. The people do. We decide who gets on the campaign debate stage. Here are some of the issues that will not be discussed. The result is a presidential campaign agenda that's very thin beer. They're not touching third-rail issues. We have 2 million people in jail. The drug war isn't working. We are knocking doors down in a rootin' tootin' shootin' Wild West policy that doesn't work. Drug addiction, Ralph Nader believes, is a health problem, not a criminal problem. The war on drugs isn't fair to cops. It's not fair to the police. You don't go to jail for drinking beer. You shouldn't go to jail because a cop found a roach in the ashtray of your car. Ralph Nader wants to talk about this. Ralph Nader wants to talk about the stripping of the Bill of Rights protection, the Fourth Amendment protection of privacy. You don't ever know when that door is going to come down. Police, freeze. We're killing innocent people. The billions we're spending on the drug war don't go to rehab. They go to buy helicopters and things that go boom and undermine Colombia and other countries. Stop it, stop it, stop it. Ralph Nader thinks it's wrong. We have states executing retarded teenagers. We have the Republican governor of Illinois, Republican, who said, wait a minute, hold it, called a moratorium. These four candidates won't go near this issue. They're afraid you'll think they're soft on crime. It's a third rail, and that's why we got such a thin, superficial, meaningless debate. I'll save this, you'll save that, fuzzy math. If you have 3 kids and you make $50,000 and you're 65 years old and your wife, oh, come on. Let's talk about what's concerning Americans right now and part of these issues. How about we have 46 million Americans not covered by health insurance, and Ralph Nader wants universal coverage. It's not unlike the plan they have in Canada. The only thing, everybody in Canada is covered. If you fall while you're ice skating this winter in Canada, you're covered. The only thing that separates us from Canada is an imaginary line. Is it perfect in Canada? No. Ask Canadians if they want to swap with us. We spend more money on health care than any other nation on earth. Per capita, per dollar, we're spending more money on health care. We want universal health care. Canada hasn't eliminated private property. Canada hasn't gone communist. Free enterprise lives in Canada. Don't be so concerned about this. Cover Americans, all Americans, with universal health coverage. And to those who would say that we ought to run here but not there, that we ought to run with one arm tied behind us and not so hard in some places than in others, we are saying to those who are calling us names, the Tribune of Free Speech, the New York Times, is saying, sit down already and shut up now. The New York Times and the Washington Post, major media companies, I should say, these are major media companies who have showered both parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, with millions of dollars in campaign financing, written the checks, covered the Senate, covered the House, and it worked. The 1996 Telecom Act gave them everything they wanted. Free broadband. Free. It's like giving the Mississippi River to a company. They gave it to these companies free. And we're going to take America back from these influence peddlers who are spending millions of dollars to get their way in the marketplace. We don't think Ralph Nader doesn't think the New York Times ought to own the Boston Globe. We don't think the Chicago Tribune should own the Los Angeles Times. Ask a reporter if he thinks this is a good idea. This is just part of what we're dealing with. We shouldn't be surprised that these huge media companies are trying to tell us to go away, are trying to tell us to shut up, are trying to tell us we're undemocratic. There are tens of thousands of volunteers who stood on street corners in the rain, the snow, the ice, night and day, and they overcame all the obstacles that incumbency puts in the way of challengers, and we got Ralph on the ballot in 45 states, and they're calling us undemocratic? What's democratic to you? We have obeyed. We are the only people out there who has obeyed every campaign finance law. We accept no hard, no soft, no corporate, just within the limits of the Federal Election Commission, and they're calling us egotistical. The names: George W. is a selfless patriot. Ralph Nader is an egotist. This is what they're trying to tell us. It isn't going to work. We're going all out. We're never going to stop. This is the beginning of the new millennium, and it will see the formation of a powerful third-party force that's going to take back the American elective process from the debate commission and from the Fortune 500 companies. And helping us to do that. And incidentally, to our friends in the Democratic Party who wish we would go away, we have this question: when can we run? Shall we take our hats and whimper off into a corner, and then 4 years from now, to what Democrat shall we make our pilgrimage, hats still in hand, and say, may we run this year, Massa? May we run now? When can we be Americans? When can we get signatures on a ballot? When can we empower millions and millions of cynical, never-before voters to come to us? When will you allow us to do this? You didn't tell Patrick Buchanan to go away. You didn't tell Ross Perot to go away. Why are you telling Ralph Nader to go away? What are you afraid of? We're here, we're going to stay here, and we're going to stay the fight. And after Tuesday, we are about the beginning of a third party to challenge the incumbent power and the abuses that have come from both political parties, who quite literally have become an extension of corporate America. We're changing that. We're bringing it back to the people. Of the several unions, we believe we have millions of union members who are going to turn their back on their leadership and vote for Ralph and Winona this Tuesday. We have several unions who are out and about for Ralph. They have come out four square for Ralph. They are enthusiastic for Ralph, and we are very, very pleased to stand with them. These are the true expressions of American labor, and one of them happens to be out and supporting Ralph, the California Nurses Association. They see the problem. They see the problem. They are informed consumers and informed voters. And I'm now proud to introduce to you the executive director of the California Nurses Association, a real American, a proud American. Here is Roseanne DeMauro.
Hey, are we having fun? I bring you greetings from the 31,000 members of the California Nurses Association. I have the great honor of being their executive director, and I have to tell you, they are the last line of defense for patients. Corporate medicine has failed in every respect. The number of uninsured have risen. Patients are being pushed out, they're sicker, and all of us will be patients one day. Nurses don't have the luxury of counting on doctors and administrators to make decisions about patients. They count on their judgment, that independent judgment. And so, as we count on RNs, we also have been extremely privileged in having Ralph Nader, many years before this campaign, fight side by side with us in California. He's been for patients all the way down the line, and as he likes to say, and we like to say, he's a real RN. That's Ralph Nader. So our organization supports Ralph. He's the only one out there talking about universal health care now. Nurses don't have the political luxury of watching their patients die and families being so horribly destroyed when patients could be saved. And the abuses that are going on in HMOs and corporate medicine are horrendous. We don't have, in California or in the rest of the United States, the luxury to wait. Universal health care must happen now. But I'm also happy to say that this girl has the privilege of working with one of the largest women's associations in the country. And as women, Ralph Nader is the one who's always been the most clear, continues to be the most clear on issues that affect women, including choice. Ralph talks about the millions of women and families in poverty and wants systemic solutions. He talks about the way women are victimized by corporations. Every day, we establish corporate abuse in this country through low salaries, no health care, no flexibility in the workplace, mandatory overtime, and denied freedom to join trade unions, along with men, I might add. We're not alone in California. Fortunately, we're in California. We've had the privilege of having the Los Angeles Weekly come out for Ralph, which we're very proud of. I think it's because CNA took the leadership role. Also, the San Francisco Bay Guardian, these are huge, came out Ralph Nader for president. So there they are. So it's both ends of the state in California. What we've also done on our website, calnurses.org, is we've started a Labor for Nader support. And we've run an ad on Friday, last Friday, in the New York Times, supporting Ralph Nader for president. And we just did this 2 weeks ago, and we've had over 400 people sign on to this ad. So if you're a member of a union, get onto our website, join the Labor for Nader. It's just another part of the, well, in healthcare, it's the Blue Coalition and the Green Coalition, and it's healthcare. So, you know, we're looking forward. I just really want to take a moment to tell you, how much we very much appreciate all that you do. Because otherwise, people of my generation have just given up. I think all those times in the Rose Garden or something have just affected their judgment, but you continue to believe in yourselves. And I believe that together, when you take the healthcare workers in this country and the people who are concerned about the environment and the workers in this country, nothing can stop us. So I applaud you, and we'll continue to work with Ralph and you, and thank you very much.
Now, as you know, I'm a man who loves music. I like Mozart, I like country, I like MOR, but really deep down, as most of you I think already know, I'm a hip-hop kind of guy. You look up hip-hop, baby, there's a picture of me. That's why I am very, very proud to introduce a young man, a young artist, who has been very strong on the issue of Tibet, who's been courageous and out front. He is Adam Yauch of the Beastie Boys, right here.
Hi, how's everybody doing? Well, I just came here today to offer my support to Ralph Nader and his there's a number of issues that Ralph supports that I feel strongly about. Firstly, I can't imagine voting for a candidate that supports the death penalty. Both Bush and Gore intend to increase spending on the defense budget, and Nader intends to reduce that. And I think he intends to work towards nuclear disarmament. I think there's, but the list goes on and on. I mean, the things that he stands for, I think in general, support human rights and respect humanity in a way that I don't think that any of the other candidates do. Somebody asked me the other day who I was going to vote for, and I told them I was voting for Nader, and they asked me why, and basically I just said because I believe that he cares, and I really do. Thank you.
You want superstars? We got superstars, baby. His latest film, Bozeman and Leanna, about South Africa. Here's an actor with a conscience, and we want him on our side, and he is. He is Danny Glover.
Like Adam, like you, like Phil, I'm here to support Ralph Nader. We've started something here. We have a lot of hard work ahead of us. I was trying to figure out at what point, when did I first become political? Maybe the point that I was born black in America made me automatically political. I was 7 years old when the Supreme Court upheld the landmark decision, Brown versus the Board of Education. I was 8 years old when the great Martin Luther King and others, Rosa Parks, began the Montgomery bus boycott. I was 13 years old and believed when John Kennedy said, "Ask not what your country could do for you, but what you could do for your country." 25 years old when I supported McGovern for president. And at last, the last time, over 40 when I supported the caucus. Yeah, it's been a long time. It's been a long time. But we know a vote for Nader means that the buck stops here. A vote for Nader means we're not willing to continue to play the game of the lesser of two evils. The lesser of two evils means that there are 2 million men and women in prison in this country, 51% of them African Americans. The lesser of two evils means that there are more men and women who've been executed in this country. That's the lesser of two evils. The lesser of two evils means that globalization has gone on and continue to go on rampant in the world. That's the lesser of two evils. A vote for Nader means that we're willing to not to play that game. A vote for Nader means that the truth matters to us, all of us, young and old, those who've yet to be born. A vote for Nader means that our visions of the world we want to see matters. A vote for Nader means that we're prepared to be participants in our own rescue. Participants, not onlookers, but participants. And a vote for Nader means that we're prepared to build a real inclusive progressive voice in this country. That's what a vote for Nader means. Over 60 years ago, a great American poet in another time of crisis wrote this very, very wonderful poem. His name was Langston Hughes, and I'll read that poem. Poem is Let America Be America Again. Let America be the dream it used to be. Let it be the pioneer on the plain seeking a home where he himself is free. America was never America to me. Let America be the dream, the dreamer's dream. Let it be that great strong land of love where neither kings connive nor tyrants scheme that any man be crushed above. It never was America to me. Oh, let my land be a land where liberty is crowned with no false patriotic grief, but opportunity is real and life is free. Equality is in the air we breathe. There's never been equality for me, nor freedom in this homeland of the free. Say, who are you that mumbles in the dark? And who are you that draws your veil across the star? I am the poor white, fooled and pushed apart. I am the Negro bearing slavery scar. I am the red man driven from the land. I am the immigrants clutching the hope I seek and finding only the same old stupid plan of dog eat dog, of mighty crush the weak. I am the young man full of strength and hope, tangled in that ancient endless chain of profit, power, gain, of grab the land, of grab the gold, of grab the way of satisfying need, of work the men, of take the pay, of owning everything for one's own greed. I am the farmer, bondsman to the soil. I am the worker sold to the machine. I am the Negro servant to you all. I am the people, humble, hungry, mean. Hungry yet today, despite the dream. Beaten yet today. Oh, pioneers, I am the man who never got ahead. The poorest worker bartered through the years. Yet I'm the one who dreamt our basic dream. In that old world while still a serf of kings, who dreamt the dream so strong, so brave, so true, that even yet its mighty daring seen in every brick and stone, in every furlough turn, that's made America the land it has become. Oh, I am the man who sailed those early seas in search of what I meant to be my home. For I am the one who left dark Ireland's shore and Poland's plain and England's grassy lea, and torn from black Africa's strand, I came to build a homeland of the free. The free? Who says the free? Not me, surely not me. The millions on relief today, the millions who have nothing for our pay, for all the dreams we dreamed, for all the songs we sung, for all the hopes we held, for all the flags we hung. The millions who have nothing for our dream, for our pay, except the dream that's almost dead today. Oh, let America be America again. The land that never has yet, and yet must be. The land where every man is free. The land that's mine, the poor man's, Indian, Negro, me, who made America, whose sweat and blood, whose faith and pain, whose hand at the foundry, whose plow in the rain, must bring back our mighty dream again. Sure, call me any ugly names you choose. The steel of freedom does not stain. For those who live like leeches on the people's lives, we must take back our land again. America. Oh yes, I say it plain. America has never been America to me. And yet I swear this oath, America will be. Out of the rack and ruin of our gangster death, out of the rape and rot of graft and stealth and lies, we the people must redeem the land, the mines, the plants, the rivers, the mountains, the endless plain, all the stretch of these great green states, and make America again. Thank you.
Grilled tenderloin for fundraiser, $1,000 a plate. Campaign ads filled with half-truths, $10 million. Promises to special interest groups, over $10 billion. Finding out the truth? Priceless. There are some things money can't buy. For everything else, there's your voter registration card. Use it. Vote Green Party candidate Ralph Nader for president.
And as we've said, had a busy campaign schedule on to Detroit, Milwaukee, and Waterloo, Iowa tonight. Governor Bush is in Florida all day. We're going to take you from that scene live to the MCI Center here in Washington, D.C., where a Ralph Nader super rally, as the Green Party is calling it, is just about to get underway. And among the speakers, Phil Donahue, who is our guest here this morning. Ralph Nader scheduled to speak at about 2:30 East Coast time. And again, we'll have live coverage of Governor Bush in Florida later this afternoon as we continue on this all-politics weekend. One other reminder, too, go to cspan.org for the latest on schedule information of the candidates and our C-SPAN program information. Back now to the MCI Center here in Washington.
The donkey is something that, a robot or a monkey or a dog could choose. To be able to use your gift of reasoning, your mind, and look at, what somebody's saying, using your senses, and then equating that to a decision at the end of the day is what anybody should do in the voting process. This A or B, especially when it comes down to candidates running like it's some big popular rally. I mean, really, that's a way and a thing of the past, and a lot of us can't look at the past as being much better days. All right? So let's look ahead to look at better days, and let's look at more options, and truly have something that represents the people. A strong third party should actually, deal with the issues of education and health care, opportunities when it comes down to people of color, opportunities in business and participation in government, opportunities in sharing the wealth of the land. A lot of people are saying a vote for Nader is a non-vote for Gore, which is a vote for George Mingle Bush. But I would also encourage people to say that another party has to be built.
Good afternoon. I'm Reverend Graylin Hagler. I am pastor of Plymouth Congregational United Church of Christ here in Washington, D.C., and I am development director of the Neighborhood Assistance Corporation, which is a neighborhood stabilization organization with 22 offices across the country. And everybody keeps coming to me and saying, what do you think about the elections? And I have to respond, what elections? My issues are not being addressed. The issues of working people in America is not being addressed. Nobody is addressing the issues of where I live, where my community lives, except for Ralph Nader, except for Ralph Nader. What elections? The only elections I see are being run by big business and pollsters and people who are trying to tell us what to think and what to believe and what are the issues of the day, and it just doesn't ring true. I see a campaign being run by Chevron and Texaco and the drug companies and Terry Mary at the banks in New England at Fleet Bank and all the other bankers trying to tell us what to believe while they steal homes away from the elderly. What elections are you talking about? You're talking about greed. You're talking about greed.
I was the co-chair of the 1992 Draft Nader for President Committee, and I want to say it was worth the 8-year wait, Ralph. And what the press and the pundits are missing is we're going to be with Ralph in 2000, we'll be with him in 2004, we'll be with him in 2008. Before we proceed here, I'd like you to answer one question. The media from all over the world is here. We're live on C-SPAN, and they want to know one question. And if you agree with me in this question, if you answer affirmative, I hope you'll stand up and chant with me, "Go, Ralph, go." The question is, are you going to reject the indentured cynicism of the Gore and Bush campaigns and vote your conscience and vote your heart and work like hell to get out the vote in the next 48 hours. Are you? Let's hear it. Can't hear you. Shake your head. Not enough yet. Not enough yet. All right, get him on at this peak. All right, they're going. Now, what the press is also missing is that this is an extraordinary volunteer effort. And the man who's with me, is with me started all these super rallies. He's a lawyer from Portland, Oregon. He suspended his law practice to go around the country and organize these super rallies, and it's a testament to the great spirit of volunteerism that we have in this campaign. His name is Greg Kafori. Give him a big hand and fill out these pledge cards that you have.
My law partner, Mark McDougall, and Laird Hasty have been with us all the way and instrumental in making these things happen. I want to tell two very short stories which provide sort of bookends to this campaign and perhaps visions of an alternate future. A young woman lawyer came to me a few years ago and she said, "You know, Greg, I went to work for a big corporate law firm because I figured I'd kind of learn how it worked from the inside and use all that knowledge to fight them." And she said, "You know, you can't imagine what it's like." She said, "I was called into a meeting and the senior partner brings all the young, eager lawyers who want to become partners in there, and he says, 'We've got a really tough case here. We want a really tough case here. We want to put a polluting factory in the middle of a small town, and it's going to make the children sick, and the town is fighting us, and I want to know who's tough enough to fight this through, who's going to stay with us all the way.'" And she said, "These guys just couldn't contain themselves, jumping. I'll do it, they said. You can count on me." Some years ago, I was hitchhiking, and a young woman was picked up after me, just a sweet little waif kind of blowing across the country, and she was a chatterbox, and she just told her story. And she said she grew up in this tiny little town, and there was a factory in the town, and the factory was a terrible polluter, she said, and it made the children sick. And she ended her story by simply saying, "And then Nader made him stop." And as you consider how strongly you can support this campaign, how much you can do financially and in terms of your time and energy, especially in the next 48 hours, and then carrying on to the next 4 years, please consider not just the honor and the dignity and the forthrightness with which Ralph Nader has conducted this campaign, but consider the other side, their impertinence. Consider their arrogance, keeping Nader out of the debates, not even letting him in when he had a ticket. And then after saying they wouldn't discuss the issues with him, they weren't going to talk about the challenge to corporate power, having the gall to say, well, Nader, now you should fall on your sword. You shouldn't even be in this race, because if you stay in this race, some people might vote for a candidate that's not corporate approved. And as you consider how far we have come, please consider what Gandhi said. First, he said, "They ignore you." Then they laugh at you. Then they attack you. And then you win. We need some serious money for the next 48 hours. We have television, we have radio, we've got to get out the vote. You know how important it is that this campaign finish strongly. Who now today will stand up and pledge $1,000 right here in front of C-SPAN, God and everybody, to this campaign? There's one. Give him a hand. We need some more. 3. Draw strength from your brothers and sisters. Who else can help to the tune of $1,000? Stand up. For those watching on C-SPAN, you can make pledges right here. Put it on the screen at votenader.com or votenader.org. We have, for anyone who contributes $200, we have the fundamental Nader book, the Ralph Nader Reader. We will pass them out to you and then meet here after the show, and we'll get them signed by Ralph personally, each one of them. We need people who can contribute $200. We need people who can contribute $100. We're going to have people passing amongst you with large boxes. Each of you has a pledge card to fill out for your credit card. Simply put the information down on it, the amount in it, cash, whatever cash you can put in the box as it comes by. Please do it, everything we need. And remember, there's $15,000 of change in people's pockets in this room. I don't want anybody leaving hearing any rattling change, okay? Pass around the boxes, my friends. Can we have a little music while the boxes are moved around?
And as we've said, had a busy campaign schedule on to Detroit, Milwaukee, and Waterloo, Iowa tonight. Governor Bush is in Florida all day. We're going to take you from that scene live to the MCI Center here in Washington, D.C., where a Ralph Nader super rally, as the Green Party is calling it, is just about to get underway. And among the speakers, Phil Donahue, who is our guest here this morning. Ralph Nader scheduled to speak at about 2:30 East Coast time. And again, we'll have live coverage of Governor Bush in Florida later this afternoon as we continue on this All Politics weekend. One other reminder, too, go to cspan.org for the latest on schedule information of the candidates and our C-SPAN program information. Back now to the MCI Center here in Washington.
Or the donkey is something that, a robot or a monkey or a dog could choose. To be able to use your gift of reasoning, your mind, and look at, what somebody's saying, using your senses, and then equating that to a decision at the end of the day is what anybody should do in the voting process. This A or B, especially when it comes down to candidates running like it's some big popular rally. I mean, really, that's a way and a thing of the past, and a lot of us can't look at the past as being much better days. All right? So let's look ahead to look at better days, and let's look at more options and truly have something that represents the people. A strong third party should actually, deal with the issues of education and health care, opportunities when it comes down to people of color, opportunities in business and participation in government, opportunities in sharing the wealth of the land. A lot of people are saying a vote for Nader is a non-vote for Gore, which is a vote for George Mingle Bush. But I would also encourage people to say that another party has to be built.
Good afternoon. I'm Reverend Graylin Hagler. I am pastor of Plymouth Congregational United Church of Christ here in Washington, D.C., and I am development director of the Neighborhood Assistance Corporation, which is a neighborhood stabilization organization with 22 offices across the country. And everybody keeps coming to me and saying, what do you think about the elections? And I have to respond, what elections? My issues are not being addressed. The issues of working people in America is not being addressed. Nobody is addressing the issues of where I live, where my community live, except for Ralph Nader, except for Ralph Nader. What elections? The only elections I see are being run by big business and pollsters and people who are trying to tell us what to think and what to believe and what are the issues of the day, and it just doesn't ring true. I see a campaign being run by Chevron and Texaco and the drug companies and Terry Mary at the banks in New England at Fleet Bank and all the other bankers trying to tell us what to believe while they steal homes away from the elderly. What elections are you talking about? You're talking about greed. You're talking...
All right, I got for you now. Incidentally, our website is votenader.com, votenader.org. We call your attention to the web, which has been a roar with Nader campaign positions, and it has certainly drawn thousands of people to this campaign. I will. Ladies and gentlemen, a real populist from Texas, here is it, Jim Hightower. Right.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much. What a joy it is for me to join you, rowdy and raucous agitators for American democracy, preparing to take our country back. As we gather here, the MCI center of all places, this bastion of populism, just to say no to politics as usual, just to say no to the non-choice of Al Gore and George W. Bush, Miller Lite versus Bud Light, mighty small beer, either way you look at it. But we're not gathered here just to say no. We've come together all across this great country to say yes to giving our great American democracy a Ralph Nader jumpstart in this presidential year, to build a new political movement from the ground up that is of, by, and for the ordinary people in this country. You know, Kermit the Frog is famous for saying, "It is not easy being green." But it is with Ralph Nader in the lead. This is what America's all about. Agitators getting together to take their country back, to be in charge of our own political destinies. Now, the powers that be don't like this at all. They don't like you and me going outside the corporate-approved duopoly. Ralph Nader and you and me drive the establishment crazy. Now, of course, that's a pretty short ride for most of them. I noticed that Senator Harry Reid recently came out, apparently woke up that morning and had an extra helping of Fruit Loops, and came out and said, Ralph Nader is a selfish person. He has no respect for the process. Whoa. Well, neither did Thomas Jefferson and Thomas Paine have any respect for the process. Neither did Sojourner Truth and Frederick Douglass. Neither did the populists and the wobblies, the abolitionists and the suffragists. Neither did Martin Luther King Jr. and Cesar Chavez. Be proud of being agitators just like these great American patriots have been agitators. After all, the agitator is the center post in the washing machine that gets the dirt out. That's a good thing. We need more of it. We hear both political parties, for example, talking about the so-called prosperity that is sweeping America. Unprecedented economic growth, we're told. In fact, Money Magazine had a cover article recently said, everyone's getting rich. Hello. I was born at night, but it wasn't last night. Everyone's getting rich. Average wages today are beneath in real buying power what they were when Richard Nixon was president. This is prosperity. Even though it's our labor, our creativity, our productivity that's sent corporate profits through the roof and stock prices as well. Sure, Wall Street's whizzing, but it's whizzing on you and me. Think about it. So our job is to stop the stealing. Let's dare, as the founders of this great nation did in 1776, and as every people's movement has had to do since, to take the dangerous route, to go outside the establishment and go with the people themselves. Trust the people, build with the people. The good news is the people are ready, yearning for a new politics that not only reaches out to them, but is them. And the people know that they're not given a choice with Gore and Bush. After all, we know the difference between chicken salad and chicken shit, don't we? I mean, it's pretty clear. But we've been told by the powers that be, we've been scolded by the New York Times even, and told that we've got to stick with Al, that we've got to go with the status quo. Well, you know, a farmer friend of mine once told me, Hightower, status quo is Latin for the mess we're in. We've got an old saying in Texas that if you found that you've dug yourself into a hole, the very first thing to do is quit digging. And if we don't quit digging in 2000, we're going to be in a hole in 2004 and 2008 and 2012. We're going to dig deeper and deeper. Let's get out of the hole. Let's build something for this country, a real opportunity. I travel this great land, and I can tell you people are not sticking with the status quo. The folks are in rebellion against the status quo. United Students against sweatshops, the people who are fighting for a living wage, public financing of our elections. Not to mention that little Seattle Tea Party of just over a year ago. Huh? I'll tell you what happened in Seattle was we opened a great old big can of kick-ass and they can't put the lid back on it ever again. Ever again. The people are on the move. Time for a new politics that's got passion in it. Politics that matters again, a politics that rallies that workaday majority that's now shut out, a politics that, as we say in Texas, is hotter than high school love. Let's get it on. And we've got the opportunity with Ralph Nader to build that politics beginning next Tuesday. Who's really going to fight for health care for all people, Gore and Bush or Ralph Nader? Who's really going to challenge the globaloney gotcha of NAFTA and the WTO and the other acronyms of globaloney? Gore, Bush, or Ralph Nader? Who's really going to fight for public financing of elections? Gore, Bush, or Ralph Nader? Gore and his corporate Democrats would say to us that we're the spoilers. We're in Al's way. Well, wait a minute. We didn't spoil the Democratic Party with billions of corrupt corporate cash. We didn't spoil the Democratic Party by downsizing the middle class and shutting out more than 1,000 farmers a week off the land in this country. We're not the ones who tossed 1 million low-income moms into the streets saying, get a job, when they knew there were no jobs with a living wage, no jobs with health care benefits for their children. I come to you as a Democrat, been elected as such in the state of Texas. They're still laughing about it down there. But I now look up at my party at the national level, the corporate Democrats, and I see that my party has taken off the old Sears Roebuck work boots and strapped on the same Gucci's and Poochies that the Republicans are running around in. And we've got to find a way to create a new political channel for the people who are being shut out, knocked down and stomped on. Even a dog knows the difference between being stumbled over and being kicked. We're being kicked. It's time, if you want to fight back against the status quo, if you're tired of business as usual, of being shut out by the exclusivity and elitism of the economic and political powers, then it's up to you and me to build something new. In my book, if the gods had meant us to vote, they would have given us candidates. But the truth is, of course, the gods don't give us candidates. We've got to do that ourselves, and we've got to do it at a grassroots level. You have the power. You have the power. Patti Smith has that wonderful song, people have the power to dream, to rule, to wrestle the world from fools. That's what we're starting in this election process. And I'll say to you, the most important day for you and me is not November 7th, it's November 8th, because we continue to build all across the country at a grassroots level. I'll leave you with this thought. It's something that my old Aunt Eula said to me years ago. Eula was a farmer up in northeast Texas, and she said something I didn't understand at the time, but I think I do now. Eula said to me, Jim, the water won't ever clear up till we get the hogs out of the creek. Now, right there's our problem, isn't it? The hogs are in the creek. They're fouling our economic, political, and environmental waters. I don't know how much you know about hogs, but you don't get a hog out of the creek by saying, here, hog, pretty please. You get a hog out of the creek by putting your shoulders to it and shoving it out of the creek. That's our job. Thank you very much for the great fight you're making.
While the band tunes up, just to vamp here for just 1 second, let us remind ourselves that Ralph Nader advances positions that are not radical. We're going to hear a lot of hysteria over the next 2 days, and we've heard it already. A lot of fear and loathing out there is provoking a lot of people to say very, very untrue things. Ralph Nader's father was a small businessman. Ralph Nader watched his father run a restaurant in Winston, Connecticut, in which it was famously reported you could get a dime's worth of coffee and $1's worth of conversation. Ralph Nader believes in free enterprise. Ralph Nader believes in an honest day's pay for an honest day's work. Ralph Nader wants parity between corporations and workers. Ralph Nader doesn't believe, as apparently so many in America do, that corporate power is good and union power is bad. We want it to be easier for union workers to organize trade unions, to coalesce, to meet the enormous power of America's corporations. Ralph Nader believes if you build a better mousetrap, you ought to be rewarded for your genius and your skill and your innovation. What he does not believe is that one company ought to be able to buy all the mousetrap companies so they're the only ones standing and can raise the price without fear of competition and gouge all the people with mice in their basement. This is what we want to stop. This is what we have the power to stop. We are, after all, the people. Are you close? Ralph Nader was raised not to go with the political winds of the time. When he came home from the 3rd grade, he said, Mommy, I'm wearing shorts. I'm wearing shorts. All the other kids are wearing long pants. They want to know why I wear shorts. I should wear long pants. I should wear long pants. His mother said, you go back there and you tell them you wear short pants. Somewhere in this raising, somewhere in this Lebanese tradition, has come a man who is not going to be influenced by the contemporary fickle political winds of our time. So when people say, but you've got to raise millions from corporation if you're going to run for president, just as his mother said, you tell them you wear short pants, Ralph Nader has told this nation, I'm not accepting illegal contributions. I'm going to take contributions as prescribed by the FEC. We are proud to be the only horse out there obeying all the rules. Ralph Nader's mother Winston was flooded in 1955. Flooded. You couldn't move. The entire main street of Ralph Nader's hometown was underwater. Halfway anyway. You couldn't get into it. Totally paralyzed the city. Ralph Nader's mother, Rose, a month later was in a line to shake hands with Prescott Bush, the grandfather of George W. Prescott Bush, senator from Connecticut. And as he came by, he was shaking hands, and she reached out her hand, and she said, Senator, we need a dam to control the Mad River. He said, yes, 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 thank you. And he kept moving as candidates do, and she didn't leave go of his hand. Senator, we need a dam. Yes, yes, yes. Senator, she didn't let go. Today, the Mad River Dam stands as a result of her citizenship and her banging on a very big door. And she taught her little boy Ralph how to do the same thing. Ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to present a woman who's been at the center of our popular culture now for a long time. A single mother, a woman of conscience. She not only sings, but she has a fabulous heart, and she is a true Democrat, and she's been a guerrilla on the front lines of this candidacy. I am pleased to give you Patti Smith right here.
Thank you, everybody. I have one simple thing to say. For me, a vote for Nader is a vote for Nader. And none other. The garden of consciousness turns in fertile mind the dormant seed, blooming into charity. Conscience breathes a sigh of relief. Confessions of sleep, unfolding peace. Moved by love to serve, we celebrate all merit in life. Confessions of sleep, the awakening seed. to need, and you will hear the call action, great and small, received joyfully. Heaven abounds, let love resound. Charity, and you will hear the call of action, great and small, receive joyfully. If he be mute, give him a bell. If he be blind and eyes, if he be down a hand, give with your voice, give with your voice, give of your mind, one mind, give of your heart, one heart, give of your voice, one voice. Thank you. Each one of us has a voice that is symbolized by our vote, and each vote is precious and meaningful. And on the 7th, please vote as your conscience dictates, no more, no less. We would like to dedicate this little song to Winona LaDuke. And we should like to thank all the volunteers, all of the volunteers, the Green Party volunteers, everyone who works so hard, who is unsung, who is virtually unthanked except for the work that they do, which is its own reward. And we want to thank everyone that's come out from New Jersey or Philadelphia, Arlington, from Virginia, and Northern Virginia, from everywhere, wherever you're from. Thank you for coming. What is it, children, that falls from the sky? Tai, 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 manna from heaven, from the Most High, food from the Father. Tai, tai, oh, we shall live again. We shall live again. Shake out the coats. Give to your brother, give and take. Tai, tai, hold its little feet. One foot extended, snake to the ground. One foot extended, worm turn around. Oh, we shall live again. Oh, we shall live again. We shall live again. Shake out the
shall live again. We shall live. We shall live again. We shall live. We shall live again. We shake out the ghost. We'll be back. Go green!
He led demonstrations calling for the passage of sanctions on South Africa. He brought 5,000 people to the South African embassy here and to consulates around this nation. He brought tens of thousands of people. 5,000 people went to jail. Here's a man who needs no lecture about working from the ground up to bring the rights that are embodied in our Constitution, and the dignity of all people is promoted by the work that this man did. Nelson Mandela's out of jail. Sanctions worked. Everybody criticized him at the time, but off he went to jail in handcuffs and everything. I am proud to present to you the president of Trans Africa, Randall Robinson.
Thank you. For the better part of a century, the Republican Party has been hostile to the fundamental interest of America's black community. Consistently, Democratic Party candidates for the presidency have sought and received our support, only to turn their backs to us upon assuming office. Nonetheless, for all of my adult life, I have voted for Democrats seeking the presidency. I cannot do that again. Many have said to me that the black community has little choice but to vote for the lesser of two evils. I reject this notion. Indeed, the habit of accepting the lesser evil serves to erode democratic society. We have at least two alternative courses. The first is the course of hopelessness, which spells the slow, silent death of our democratic system, leaving in its wake a husk of ritual without content. This is the course to be taken by 100 million Americans who on Tuesday will choose to not vote at all. Were Ralph Nader not running for the presidency, I would be, for the first time in my life, among their ranks. They are not homogeneous. Though largely young and poor, they will proportionately include women and men, blacks and whites, Asians and Hispanics. They have dropped out because they intuit that their vote means nothing, that it will win for them no response to their concerns, that deals have been cut, that public policy has been bought, that jobs have been peddled, that favors have been traded, that big money has made folly of the democratic exercise, fools of our citizenry. Those of us who have come here today have decided upon a second alternative course. We understand by our presence that in a democracy, responsibilities of citizenship cannot be fully discharged by the exercise of the ballot alone. That we are working to build a diverse popular voice untainted by corporate sponsorship, a voice for those millions who have been ignored and overlooked. Sometime toward the middle of this century, Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans, and African Americans will comprise the new American majority. If our society is to cohere, this will require of us strengthened democratic values, a new openness, improved communication between all of America's races. We must learn a great deal more than we know now about each other's cultures and stories and histories. For only from knowledge can racial understanding flower. With respect to my community, America must know not just about the struggles of Martin Luther King, Harriet Tubman, and Frederick Douglass, but of the ancient African societies that gave 3 popes to the Vatican, civilization to Greece, and a wife named Zipporah to Moses. Neither the greater nor the lesser evil is courageous or thoughtful enough to take the long view of what democracy really requires. But Ralph Nader is. I have worked all of my life in global human rights advocacy. Some of those issues bring me here today. They are mere examples of the new load to which big money has brought American public policy. Today, as we assemble here, 7 democratic, friendly, steadfast, stable, decent Caribbean democracies are 1 second from midnight. St. Lucia, Dominica, St. Vincent, Grenada, Belize, Jamaica, and Suriname are losing their only markets in the world because the Clinton administration has exchanged their economic and political survival for a gift from Chiquita bananas. Neither the greater nor lesser evil talked about this in their campaigns, but Ralph did. . 'Cause 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 ' Black leaders across our country rightly have focused on racial profiling. But the great danger is that we have missed the forest for the tree. For isn't it odd in a democracy with 1/20th of the world's population, we have 1/4 of its prisoners? Isn't it odd in a failing town like Malone in New York State, cities across America vying to build prisons, willy-nilly, New York State having doubled its number of prisons in the last 20 years, gaining at the same time with 2 new prisons, 1,400 new jobs, 18 new holes for the golf course in an all-white city, when 83% of the inmates in the prisons are either black or Hispanic. They're sentenced to more than 20 years for non-violent drug offenses, first offenses. And so we must remember that slavery didn't end in 1865. For what we're seeing now in America, in the prison industrial complex, is the new slavery. And what we must remember, and what Ralph alone among the candidates talks about, is that we have destroyed 2 cultures in our country. One, the culture of the first Americans. And secondly, the cultures of those who were brought here in the slaves of whole ships, in the hulls of slave ships, making wealthy companies of Brown University, Fleet Bank, my own law school, and Ralph's law school, Harvard Law School, endowed through the sale of Antiguan slaves. And so to understand anything about present conditions, we must understand the past from which we sprang. And lastly, it is important that Ralph, alone among the candidates, chose to close his campaign in the nation's capital. For this is the last American colony. This is the only place in America where we cannot have full representation in the Congress. And I say to you, to those who tell me that a vote for Ralph is a vote for Bush, I say to them that a vote for Ralph is a vote for Ralph. That a vote for Ralph is a vote for authentic democracy. That a vote for Ralph is a vote for the future of our country. That a vote for Ralph is a vote for the soul of the American people. Thank you very much.
We are getting there. Just in advance of introducing the man who will introduce our featured speaker. The march for D.C. statehood will begin immediately at the end of this rally, assembling at 7th and F, and marching to the Josephine Butler building. That's immediately after, so those who support, and we all do, statehood for D.C., gather at 7 and F right after the rally. If you wish to volunteer in the district area, if you wish to volunteer and contribute in these final 48 hours to the Nader LeDuc candidacy, here's 202-265-0633. The phone number is 202-265-0633. The headquarters is at 14 P Street Northwest. That's P as in Philip. It's between 14th and 15th. We're looking for you. We're very pumped. We feel we have momentum, and we think everybody's smiling. We've never had this kind of energy before. There's no other campaign like us. We aren't going away. In fact, we are here to win. And now, ladies and gentlemen, direct from his job where he models clothes for Ralph Lauren, here is the man who altered documentary making forever. He's Roger and me's, the guy my mother wanted to have. Here is Roger, here is Michael Moore.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right, DC. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Ralph Nader at the MCI Center. He's back there now making calls for 1 cent a minute. And he's calling all of you, America, to come and vote for him on Tuesday. I'll tell you, my favorite moment of this past week had to be when George W. Bush, I believe he was in my home state of Michigan, said the following: they want the federal government to control Social Security like it's some kind of federal program. I fully expected the next line to be, they expect the President of the United States to sit in the White House like it's some sort of White House. I mean, look, I gotta say, you know, and we're live on C-SPAN right now, so let me just speak to the people at home on a Sunday afternoon across America. We're all here today representing the millions of people who are going to vote for Ralph Nader on Tuesday. But let me make a personal appeal to the self-respect of the average American who may be watching this. I cannot believe, and I truly, in my heart of hearts, trust the American people that on Tuesday, they will not put a man in the Oval Office who looked you straight in the face and said, I've not committed a felony in the last 25 years. I can't believe that the good-hearted and intelligent people of this country will put a man into office who, by his own admission, was drunk until he was 40. I understand alcoholism is a serious problem in this country, and all of us have dear ones that we love, friends and family who have this terrible disease. The first step to recovery, as we know, is admitting I am an alcoholic. George W. Bush, to say that this was 24 years ago, to say that it was part of his personal life or his private life, I just have to say, if you go out on a public highway, that is not a private matter. That is not your personal life. If you go out on a highway when you're drunk, and to say that, if you just give me, I just want to say this, because if you come to us as the American people and you say, you know, well, it was 24 years ago. You know, 27 years ago, I was hit by a drunk driver. And to this day, I cannot fully extend my right arm because I was hit by this drunk driver 27 years ago. And it doesn't matter how long ago it was, because my arm is still in the same situation. And in those 24 years, Governor Bush, since you went out on the highway drunk, nearly 500,000 people have lost loved ones due to drinking and driving. So don't tell us this is some little youthful indiscretion. This is a serious, serious problem, and it's a crime that you committed. That you committed. Own up to it. Don't blame everybody else. Stand up and be a man and say that you have a problem. And we want to say to you that we don't want your finger on the button. We don't want you sitting in the Oval Office, because we think you have many problems. Not just this problem, but many problems. It took eight Nobel laureates this past week to go on television and say, George W. Bush, you will bankrupt the Social Security program. You have presided over a state where you tell us that education is such a great issue. Yet according to the San Antonio News this week, 42% of all high school students in Texas are dropouts. Dropouts! And you want to tell the American people this lie that you're for education. We can go down the entire list from the people you've executed, the death penalty in your state, which has a higher crime rate than my state of Michigan, which doesn't have the death penalty. Now, some of you are wondering, why have I chosen to spend the first few minutes talking about George W. Bush? Well, that's because most of us have received a lot of phone calls and emails from our friends and family across the country this week wondering, what the hell are we doing on Tuesday? And I just have to say, look, you know, I understand when someone's afraid. Fear is a horrible thing. It's a thing that grips you, and then you end up making decisions that you are going to regret later because you operate from fear. And I have not called a single Gore voter this week to say, why are you voting for a man who, as part of this administration, is responsible for 1 million more people sitting in prisons tonight than were in prison during the Reagan-Bush years? I'm not asking you, why are you voting for a man who helped to dismantle our welfare programs and who have put the poor in this country in such a position that they may never recover. And you know, if you don't win, Mr. Gore, on Tuesday, it won't be because of Ralph Nader. It will be because of you and Mr. Clinton, because of what you've done to all these people here who are upset and angry and disenfranchised and dispossessed. You have put George Bush in the White House. You are responsible. We are the people who have spent 8 years trying to undo the damage that many of us did in 1992 when we voted for Clinton and Gore, because it was the lesser of two evils. And what did we get when we voted for the lesser of two evils? We got evil. We still got evil. We got NAFTA and hundreds of thousands of jobs removed from this country and sent to sweatshops across the third world. That's what we got. We, though, today want to appeal to the people around this country, people who are afraid of a George Bush administration. We want to say to you, look, you got to do what you got to do. We understand this. We respect you. We're all going to have to work together come Wednesday, regardless who is in the White House. We're all going to have to fight whatever evil comes our way through a Gore or a Bush administration. It does no one any good to attack each other at this point when we need to be together to fight for the common good in this country. If you want Al Gore to win, why don't you stop watching me right now on C-SPAN and call up somebody who's watching a football game on the other channel and start telling them how you feel. Because for every minute you've wasted telling us why we shouldn't vote for Nader, that's a minute you could have spent convincing somebody they should vote for Al Gore. If you want him to win, I think you know what to do. You've got 48 hours. But those of us here, we're voting from our conscience. We're voting because we believe in something. We believe that when you start to whittle away at your conscience, when you start to compromise and settle and abandon your principles, that's the point where you start to back away from this country becoming a better place to live in. And every time that you start to settle, every time that you say, well, we got to do this, we got to, we've got to, it's going to be bad, I know, but we'll just have to do this. This is a horrible place to live, because when you are in this environment, it creates a lack of faith in our democracy, because you're asking people to do something they don't believe in. You're asking them to vote for the second worst guy. And when you start doing that enough times in your life, and I say this especially to the young people and the students who are the backbone of this movement, and thank you for being here all across the country. If you start at 18 years old, you can't vote at 16. I wish you could. If you start at 18 or 20 years old, not doing what your heart and your conscience tells you to do, I'm telling you, you're going to end up living your life that way, and you're going to be miserable. You'll work in jobs that you don't want to be in. You'll be in relationships you don't want to be in. You'll just be compromising your entire life to the point where you'll forget that you were ever this young and that you believed in something at one time. Don't let that happen to you. Don't start now at this young age doing that. It's a horrible place to be. I feel really bad for the attacks that Ralph has had to endure these last few weeks. I mean, I truly, as a human being and as a friend, feel bad, Ralph, that you have had to listen to this crap from people who we thought were our allies. It's very, very sad. And I'll tell you why it's sad, folks. I'll tell you why. Can you name one piece of legislation that was authored by Al Gore or George W. Bush that has made this country a better place to live in? Go ahead, shout it out right now. I want to hear that thing that he's done that's made this country a better place. And please don't say the internet. All right? Tell me something that either of these two individuals have done, because I'll tell you what Ralph Nader has done in the last 37 years. Because of Ralph Nader, the most qualified person on the ballot this Tuesday, we have the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, the Environmental Protection Agency, airbags, seatbelts, the Mine Safety Act, the Freedom of Information Act. That is what Ralph Nader has given us. That is what we have from Ralph Nader. And we owe him a debt of our gratitude and thanks. Let's go out there. Let's go out there. Let's go out there on Tuesday. Let's call our friends tonight. Let's send some emails. Let's get the vote out on Tuesday, because it will send a loud message on Tuesday to whoever sits in that Oval Office that there are millions of us that do not like what's going on.
We want a country that is fair and just for all the people, not just the upper 30% or the upper 1%. We want to be a country where we vote our conscience. And as we look at the presidents that are carved on Mount Rushmore, think about this. Up on Mount Rushmore, there sit these 4 presidents, and not a single one of them, at some point, they all rejected the corruption of this so-called two-party system. Abraham Lincoln won as a third-party candidate. Thomas Jefferson won in a very close 3-way race. George Washington didn't even believe in political parties, didn't even belong to one. And Teddy Roosevelt, after having been a Republican, rejected that, started the Progressive Party, and came in second, beating the Republicans. That's who's on Mount Rushmore. That's who's on Mount Rushmore. We admire that, don't we? Let's admire it on Tuesday. Thank you, Ralph Nader, for doing this. Thank you for being this incredible thorn in the side of our political system. Because if you hadn't done this, Ralph, for the last few weeks, we never would have heard about corporate welfare or corporate criminals or all the other things that you've been able to talk about in the media that was ignoring you. What's the old Gandhi quote? First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our good friend, Ralph Nader.
This is really great. Thank you. What a great District of Columbia welcome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you again. Okay, let's go. Thank you. Thank you. Well, when Winona LaDuke started this campaign, we wanted to welcome everybody to what we called the politics of joy and justice, and we wanted to culminate this presidential campaign right back to the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., the District of Columbia. This is the latest and the last of the giant super rallies where people from cities and suburbs and rural areas all over the country came to participate and support a campaign of political reform, a campaign that celebrates a new birth of freedom and justice, the freedom to participate in power, and the justice to pursue in the only authentic way, to pursue happiness. It requires justice to pursue happiness. But I want to take this occasion to start my remarks by focusing on the plight of the people in the District of Columbia. This situation is no longer going to be a footnote in presidential campaigns, no longer going to be a photo opportunity for politicians. More than 500,000 people live in the District of Columbia. As the capital of the United States of America, the district is supposed to be the symbol of the freedoms for which this nation stands. The light of democracy is supposed to shine from the District of Columbia, but it does not illuminate this city. The core is hollow. The values of equality and political participation that the city is promised are denied right here in our nation's capital. Most Americans and many people abroad do not know, and they would find it hard to believe, that under our current system of disenfranchisement, D.C. residents are second-class citizens. The district is denied local control. Congress must approve the district's budget and can override any action of the city government. At the same time, district residents do not have even one voting representative in the Congress which controls the minutiae of their lives. The District of Columbia is effectively a colony with all local decisions directly subject to change by a Congress largely out of touch with local realities. If there's ever a rationale for the Green Party in the District of Columbia, it's based on the following. Al Gore has supported D.C. statehood in the past, but for the last 10 years has been utterly silent on the issue. George W. Bush is on record opposing District of Columbia statehood. Here's an important issue involving the democratic rights of 500,000 people, and yet there's been no debate whatsoever, and most Americans are unaware of the issues involved. Most people who live outside the district do not know that district citizens pay about $2 billion a year in federal income taxes, more than several states, yet cannot elect people to decide how their money is spent. District of Columbia residents have served and died in our armed forces over the last half-century in disproportionately high numbers, but have no representation in the Congress that decides whether or not to go to war. The United States is the only democracy in the entire world that deprives the residents of its capital city the basic rights granted to all other citizens. And I hope the foreign press here communicates that around the world, and I hope the domestic press here communicates that around the world as well. We want D.C. statehood. Unaccountable power is by its nature abusive. The places where unaccountable power is exercised are and must be dysfunctional. Unaccountable power is uninformed. Most members of Congress don't know about this city. I campaigned in Anacostia a few weeks ago, and I saw the TV report of it. The Washington Post didn't report it, of course. I saw the TV report, and they said I was the first presidential candidate ever to campaign in Anacostia. Isn't that a shame? Isn't that a shame for all other presidential candidates? I was in Ward 8. 65,000 people live in Ward 8. They don't have a single supermarket to buy their food from. They have to go to Maryland or far from Ward 8. This is just illustrative of the deprivations here. The District of Columbia has double the infant mortality of the rest of the country. It has a poverty rate that's about 1 every 3 children in this district grow up in poverty. There are conditions here that should never be tolerated, But then the District of Columbia is a colony, and people around the world understand what colonies are. Most members of Congress don't feel what the District of Columbia people feel. They approve the budget and all the legislation, but they don't have to live with their decisions, these members of Congress. They foist pet projects on citizens who are perfectly capable of deciding these issues locally. They prevent the district from taxing income where it is earned. They regularly overturn the judgment of local elected officials on public health, tax, budget, school issues, all with impunity. And here is what unaccountable really does when it's unaccountable power. It chokes the ability and destroys the responsibility of people to govern themselves. There's no place in the world where second-class citizens live side by side with first-class citizens and fare as well. It just doesn't happen. What happens to a community where the people cannot exercise authority, where there is no democracy? People start participating. They don't run for local offices. The civic culture of the community withers away in the face of powerlessness. On September 16th, 2000, I wrote a letter to President Clinton and Vice President Gore, and I said to them, I want to challenge you before you leave office to fill the MCI arena with DC citizens in support of statehood for the District of Columbia. We received no answer to that, but we filled this MCI arena on our own energy, and thank you all for doing that. We hear a lot about the difference between the two parties, and I do recognize there are a few major real differences between the two parties, but look what happens when they're rhetorically different, but not really different. The Democratic Party is for statehood, the Republican Party is against it. Republicans do not believe the district residents should have the right to full local or self-determination, and they don't intend to do anything about the current situation. Democrats do believe that district residents have the right to local control, and they also intend not to do anything about the current situation. On behalf of the Green Party, the District of Columbia, and our candidacy, we pledge to you that we're going to make this an issue in succeeding months, more and more intensified, deeper, broader, taking it across the country, and putting the heat on Congress until justice is done for this community. On to the major issues now around the country and the world. In a real sense, the efforts of tens of thousands of high expectation Americans who have worked on this campaign in so many diverse capacities have brought the rising political reform movement to the takeoff stage when on November 7th, millions of voters will establish the third largest party in America by size and the first party in America in its determined spirit to establish the reign of the people over this country, not the reign of giant corporations over our government and political economy. This week, on Tuesday, Election Day, millions of independent-minded voters will invest their conscience, their hopes, their dreams, their interests, and the interests of their descendants in making the Green Party a party of, by, and for the people, so that it can move to make our government a government of, by, and for the people in reality. For this effort, a deliberative democracy is required. A democracy where people spend more time every week, every month, every year on their civic responsibilities and their political duties as they see them. People must spend more time on democracy to make it work. They must spend more time if they are going to allow themselves to apply their talents and their skills and their vision and their foresight. The only place where democracy comes before work, one might add, is in the dictionary. A few weeks ago, Business Week magazine had a wonderful cover on too much corporate power over all aspects of our lives. And they detailed it in page after page. And then in an editorial, they said something extraordinary. This is a major magazine full of ads by big corporations. Think of the courage it took. They concluded that corporations have so much power that, quote, corporations should get out of politics, end quote, is what Business Week magazine said. Corporations should get out of politics. I found Business Week magazine more courageous, more forthright, and more progressive than the Democratic Party, not to mention the Republican Party. Corporations are not people, and in the words of our forebears who established the laws that chartered corporations as artificial persons, in their words, corporations were designed to be our servants, not our masters, and we must reassert the vision of our forebears in that respect. Elections are for real people, not artificial entities like corporations, full of massive power and massive money, driven overwhelmingly by their own commercial motives. Our campaign has striven to move the political agenda into the areas where too much concentration of wealth and power damage or destroy the legitimate interests and rights of the American people. And I might add, too many oppressed people all over the world. We stand for strong civil rights and civil liberties. Both of these are the pillars of our democracy, and both of them have been weakened by the current administration that uses florid oratory to camouflage a dismal dashing of expectations in these two areas of civil rights and civil liberties. Civil rights and civil liberties apply to all people, but they are necessary to apply more intensively to the first Native Americans, to African Americans, to Hispanics, to women, to gay lesbians, and to the latest immigrants to our country, who by being the newest often are excoriated and discriminated against the most. And one group of immigrants is being subjected to recurrent ethnic profiling. And just like the Irish who came to America were discriminated against, and then it was the Jews who were discriminated against when they came, then it was the Italians. Now it's the turn of the Muslim people who come to this country. And this must also be subject to strong civil rights enforcement. The laws which were passed under the Clinton-Gore administration in the civil liberties area were atrocious. The use of secret evidence and other lack of due process against immigrants in this country is a scar on our nation's sense of equal justice under law and must be repealed. Our Constitution never envisioned that the INS would be a court of law. That's for another branch of government. Longtime defenders of civil liberties, and I mean long time, 30, 40 years, including Anthony Lewis, Nat Hentoff, and the almost century-old American Civil Liberties Union, have described the Clinton-Gore's administration's performance in civil liberties as, quote, abysmal, end quote. And while the Justice Department's litigation enforcement record in the area of affirmative action and against illegal police violence is so bad that Justice Department lawyers have told us that in those two areas, the litigation enforcement record is as bad, if not worse, than Reagan-Bush. Only in anti-housing discrimination is the Justice Department under Clinton-Gore better than their predecessors. This is quite an astonishing elaboration, is it not? Because if we thought there was one area, in fact, that was different between the Republicans and Democrats, it was the area of civil rights, civil liberties. Not so. Not so. And that extends to both Gore and Bush being full out for the death penalty and not even for a moratorium, as the Republican governor of Illinois established. After Governor Ryan discovered that 11 death row inmates had been cleared by subsequent evidence before heading for execution, there would have been 11 executed, innocent people executed. He declared a moratorium, and that is not good enough for Al Gore and George W. Bush. In fact, the Clinton-Gore administration has extended the death penalty in federal laws to cover more and more areas. We're the only Western country that has the death penalty. The death penalty has been proven not to deter. And this country has been proven to be applied viciously to poor people and people of color who don't have competent lawyers to defend them. And if you don't have a competent lawyer to defend you, the risk of innocent people being executed is increased quite substantially. Also, for those who are interested in the economics, it costs more. It costs more to pursue a capital punishment case than to put a person in jail for life without parole after being convicted. We have brought a focus, the Green Party and their candidates, on the very lax enforcement regarding waves of systemic corporate crime, fraud, and abuse that is taking hundreds of billions of dollars from consumers, investors, taxpayers each year and endangering so many people's health and safety. These violations and deceptions reduce family incomes as if they were subjected to pay cuts at work. And when not stopped, these corporate criminal practices help drive out honest business practices through this unfair, unlawful competition that escapes law and order. Strong law and order with adequate enforcement resources should apply to these powerful companies. There should be no double standard. As the corporate crime reporter says regularly, there should be no double standard between crime in the suites and crime in the streets. The documentation of corporate crime, fraud, and abuse comes from many fine reports on 60 Minutes, 2020, the New York Times, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, Business Week, Time Magazine, and nothing happens. And when nothing happens, when reporters do their finest, and it's on page 1 or it's on the cover of Time Magazine, as a great report on corporate welfare was 2 years ago. When nothing happens, that means we have a collapsing democracy. We have a weak democracy and an excessively powerful plutocracy ruled by the rich and powerful. The system is out of balance. It's grossly out of balance. We have seen documented too many people who have died or been injured by dangerously defective automobiles, hazardous pharmaceuticals, flammable fabrics, asbestos, lead poisoning, toxics in the workplace, landfill dumps that leak and contaminate drinking water. Camp Lejeune now is in a turmoil for years and years. The men, women, and children in that military camp in North Carolina were drinking water that had been contaminated with a serious toxic chemical. All this is happening around the country. You travel around the country, and so many of our precious natural resources have been turned into corporate sewers, toxic sewers, producing respiratory ailments and cancer and genetic damage. This is corporate crime. This is the silent corporate criminal violence that needs 100,000 prosecutors for corporate crime prosecution. Thank you. Thank you. We urge a fundamental redirection of public taxpayer budgets, turning governments away from misusing tax dollars for corporate welfare, such as subsidies to giant agribusinesses that are starving small farmer incomes and creating incredible distress in rural America. Companies like ADM and Cargill and others who have had their hand in the trough here in Washington for all too long. We want a redirection of subsidies that now go to the giant drug companies in the form of taxpayer-funded drug research, leading to the discovery and testing of Taxol and AZT and all kinds of other significant pharmaceutical products that under our government's policy is given away free to a drug company under a monopoly marketing agreement that turns around and charges thousands and thousands of dollars per patient for a set of treatments, like $14,000 to a woman with ovarian cancer for the drug Taxol by Bristol Myers Squibb that didn't spend a cent discovering and testing it. Your tax dollars did. This must be ended. Corporate welfare subsidies that involve giveaways of our precious natural resources around the country on public lands. You know, we're the only country in the world that gives away its gold, its silver, its copper, and other hard rock metals like molybdenum. The only country in the world that gives it away because of an 1872 Mining Act. And foreign and domestic companies can come on our land, discover gold, as a Canadian company did, document $9 billion worth of gold, take it to the Department of Interior here in Washington, and they get it for $5 an acre. And they wanted so many acres, and they got title ownership to $9 billion a year gold for $30,000. This is corporate welfare run amok, and we got to put a stop to it. The Green Party stands for an end to selling our great trees in the national forest for a pittance. No more commercial logging on our national forest. We want our children and grandchildren, their descendants, to enjoy our pristine national forest, not to inherit a bunch of tree stumps. And by the way, spending $1 billion now that goes to the timber corporations, that's how much you subsidize them, $1.2 billion. You build the roads for them, you subsidize them. We put that money into restoring and preserving the national forest. It will create more jobs, provide more recreational and ecotourism, and proudly pass these forests on to future generations. Thank you. It is outrageous that you go to work every day and you pay your taxes every 2 weeks withheld, and it comes to Washington, and some of these taxes go to bail out bankers who are running their banks into the ground because of mismanagement and speculation. They go to defense contractors who set new records for cost overruns, as the Pentagon calls them. Waste, waste, waste. The golden handcuffs pumping up these weapon systems to fantastic levels. Weapon systems now in the pipeline costing us hundreds of billions of dollars that retired admirals and generals who don't go to work for the military contract business have said are unnecessary, wasteful, no strategic need. There is no more Soviet Union. There is no major enemy in the world. I was reading the other day an excerpt by General Douglas MacArthur in 1957 when he said, our government should stop exaggerating foreign threats, stop exaggerating national emergencies in order to increase the military budget. That's General Douglas MacArthur. 3 years later, President Dwight Eisenhower, who knew a bit or two about the military, he warned about the encroachment of the military-industrial complex, and that meant the constant greasing of the wheels in Congress by the military contractors, now like Lockheed Martin and Boeing and Raytheon and Grumman and Northrop, who are pushing the F-22s and the easily decoyable missile defense systems and more weapons to just make themselves more profitable, while our schools and clinics and drinking water systems and public transit are starving for the lack of public investment. We must stop. We must and can stop this corporate welfare binge that comes out of Washington, as if Washington now is pretty much just another bustling bazaar of accounts receivables for all these corporations who come here and say, gimme, 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 gimme. Well, the New York Stock Exchange wants to go on welfare. They want to build a new building in New York, so they shook down the mayor of New York for $500 million. This is the bastion of global capitalism, and we say we got to get this bastion off welfare and let it stand on its own 2 feet. There are one of the most profitable corporations in the world, the Intel Corporation. When they build a chip plant, they go dangling it in front of various cities and towns, say, how much are you going to bid? How many years are you going to give us no taxes to support municipal services? And they not only get what they want, but they burden the local community. Obviously, it grows, more demand for police, fire, educational, and other services. And here's this freeloading company whose profits are absolutely staggering, bringing these communities to their knees and eating up a lot of water in the process. Just imagine, if you will, perhaps the most outrageous corporate welfare subsidies to gambling casinos. Governor Whitman got together $300 million for a special highway spur in Atlantic City, feeding into a big gambling casino. You go around New Jersey, don't you think you could find better use for $200 million that meet the needs and necessities of the people of New Jersey? People are deprived in their necessities of life, in the facilities that are known as the public works, because of the diversion of these budgets into the coffers of rich and powerful corporations. Trillions of dollars have been diverted and misused by complex corporate welfare systems, rarely studied by our university students or scholars. Corporate welfare systems in the past 30 years, while politicians tell people there is no money for those necessities. There's no money for the urban crisis. There's no money for rural poverty. I might add that one man in the Republican Party has taken a stand against corporate welfare. His name is John Kasich, chairman of the House Budget Committee, who held the first hearings in American history on corporate welfare a couple years ago and tried to knock out some of these provisions, but his own leadership blocked him. Returning these tax dollars to human needs over corporate greed should be a priority for any political movement in this country. It would serve the children of America and their parents and all people well, while telling big capitalists to stand on their own feet and stop funding Republicans and Democratic candidates and just get off welfare. This candidacy's policies on poverty, class, and racial inequities is a very strong one. No party has positions like the Green Party on this. Poverty, class, and racial inequities mark the nation's landscape and scar our national conscience daily. Imagine 1 out of every 5 children in poverty. In California, it's 1 out of every 4. And if you add a near poverty category, it's over 45%. Just imagine that. This is the richest country in the world. There are countries in Western Europe where poverty is 2-3%, and they're ashamed of it and want to do something about it. The philosopher Heidegger once said that the basic fact about human beings is that we care for one another. That's what distinguishes us from other species, he said. But beyond the extended family, caring in an ever more complex world requires hard work and willpower. These traits were displayed in the mid-20th century by several Western European governments when they essentially abolished poverty as we know it, providing their people with universal health care, child care, paid maternity and sick leave, paid 1 month vacation, public transit that works, and much easier rights to form trade unions to bargain for either higher living standards. And we say if these countries if these countries did it in the 50s and 60s, coming out of World War II and the rubble that some of their countries were reduced to, the United States of America can do it in the year 2000 if it is led by a progressive political reform movement from the grassroots all the way to Washington, D.C. It is now the year 2000 AD. Poor people of color and other poor people still pay more, suffer more, are excluded discriminately in many, many ways, are imprisoned at hugely disproportionate rates, are racially profiled more and more, and die earlier than other people. And that is what discrimination and class distinctions do to tens of millions of hardworking Americans. And it's time to go beyond oratory. It's time to go beyond rhetoric, which the two parties are very good at, especially the Democratic Party. The phony phrases of compassionate conservatism, the phony phrases of Al Gore when he says, "I'll fight for you, not for the powerful." It's time to go beyond that, roll up our sleeves, and mobilize a movement that tells them what to do. Thank you. The legacy of slavery weighs heavily on America today. The Green Party believes that these critical tragedies, ironically in a period of economic boom and all kinds of civil rights laws on the books, demand policies that provide more neighborhood civic institutions and power to the downtrodden. They need policies that invite actively more political participation, which is a good definition of freedom. Policies that secure access to community-owned media, community-owned radio, community-owned television stations. Decent housing, preferably cooperatively owned housing. By the way, you know what the biggest public housing project in America has been in the last few years? Building prison cells, largely in corporate prisons. The Green Party says that our country should prohibit all corporate-owned prisons. It's not a profit enterprise, it's a public responsibility. Thank you. And the same is true to universal health care. I mean, how long are we going to wait on that one? President Truman proposed it to Congress in 1950, and Congress rebutted him under the influence of the American Medical Association. Here it is, 50 years. Every other Western country. We give foreign aid to countries in the third world who have universal health care for their people. Oh, how long are we going to wait? Only as long as the Republican and Democratic parties remain in charge? Is that how long we're going to wait? Let's not wait for that long. It's time. It's time to say once and forever that health care is a right in America, a human right for everyone. And people should not have to go to Canada to buy drugs at half the price made by the same U.S. drug companies who overcharge Americans for drugs higher than any other country in the world. Hey, we got them under our jurisdiction, folks. Let's put the wood to them. Let's have Medicare negotiate down these drug prices the way the Department of Defense and the Veterans Administration already do. It's a good idea to also establish community credit unions in the poor areas of our society. That'll deal with the loan sharks, rent-to-own rackets, payday loans. That's the way you deal with the loan sharks, the predatory lending funded by Wall Street investment firms. Community development credit unions, there are 400 of them in the country. They work well. We need 4,000. And the Green Party is determined to do that. We need to extend to our young people more time and attention. We need to afford them what used to be called useful pursuits. Useful pursuits to take their imagination, creativity, and their idealism into new heights of youthful achievement. And these achievements need to be publicized all over the country. Here in the district, Edgar Kahn has started youth courts run by the youth, so they understand what the system of justice and law it should be about. Youth court, there's so many good ideas around the country. In Boston, in San Antonio, in Los Angeles, they don't get national coverage because a democracy worth its salt would have its own radio, TV stations, and cable channels. It wouldn't rely so extensively on the commercial media. A commercial media that, to the chagrin of its reporters and fine editors, has trivialized itself, sensationalized itself, standardized itself, homogenized itself, laid off camera crews and reporters, and placed itself in the hands of about 8 giant media conglomerates that control so much of the circulation and the audience throughout this country. We own the public airways. We're the landlords. The radio and TV stations are the tenants. They don't pay us any rent for 70 years. They've gotten our property free. And they decide who says what and who doesn't on television and radio. That cannot continue in a democracy that has any self-respect. I say to you, without the great creation of Brian Lamb's C-SPAN, this gathering would not now be seen all over the United States and in parts of the world. And thank goodness for C-SPAN, but we need more outlets for all people in the country, in the local, state, regional, national levels. I think it's way overdue to begin replacing the call that is often made to the downtrodden and the dispossessed and the poor. It's time to begin replacing the call of, quote, I am somebody, end quote, to we are organized, therefore we are powerful, end quote. A national Marshall Plan for our cities is needed, learning from past mistakes and enlisting new political and civic energies. This must become a central part of our political discourse. This must include a living wage for the 47 million full-time workers, 1 out of every 3 workers who today do not earn a living wage. The federal minimum wage is at $5.15, which is over $2 lower in real purchasing power than the federal minimum wage was in 1968, when the economic output per capita was half what it is today, and when the productivity was 60% less. Who's getting the gains? We know it's the top 10% and more the top 5% and more the top 1%. The top 1% of the wealthiest people in this country have wealth equal to the combined wealth of the bottom 95%. And you take the poorest 120 million Americans and their combined net wealth is equal to the wealth of Bill Gates a year ago. One man. Europeans are astonished when they come here. They get all this U.S. corporate propaganda in Europe saying, hey, Europe, get with it. It's the new information age, the new technology economy. Tear apart your safety net. Do your own welfare reform. Crush your own union efforts. And become like us, because we're making big profits, say these corporations, and pay the CEOs much more than they do in Europe. The bottom 1/3 of the poorest workers in Western European governments make 44% more than the bottom 1/3 in our country. And I say to the people in Europe, take apart that propaganda. Take apart that propaganda and see what happens when you give even more power to giant corporations over your political economy and government than you have thus far. A caveat is in order. We campaign quite a bit in farm country, in rural areas in our country. And notwithstanding a booming economy, farmers can't make a living. The price for wheat, soy, corn, 30-40% lower in 1996 because these giant buyers like Cargill and ADM, they push these prices down to levels that are hardly productive of a simple livelihood. And our farm country and rural country are in deep distress as giant agribusiness, industrial agriculture, factory farming, contract farming, genetically engineered farming, moving in on the farm country. And those of us who are in the cities and suburbs should only read our history to see what will happen to the people in the cities and suburbs if we lose rural America and the small farm economy. And the Green Party strives to preserve that small farm economy and rural America in an independent, self-sustaining agriculture. Allowing workers to form trade unions is a pretty good idea that escapes the Republicans and Democrats. Democrats talk a good game, of course, but are they willing to repeal the notorious Taft-Hartley Act of 1947, which is a chokehold on tens of millions of workers who cannot form unions without huge obstructions, getting fired for just trying to form a trade union in order to lift their standard of living? I have yet to see the Democratic Party take a stand on that. At the Platform Committee in Los Angeles, the Democratic Party not only turned down a platform saying that they were for universal health care, they turned down a platform that asked them to expand aid to the poor. Can you imagine what they would do if they were offered a repeal of Taft-Hartley? They'd probably swoon by the very prospect of it. This is not the old Democratic Party. This is a hollow party. A party that engages in tens of millions of dollars of fundraising like its counterpart Republican Party, and campaigns with 30-second television ads, and doesn't have any more roots back home, and tells labor unions and minority groups, you can't go to the Republican, you got nowhere to go because we're not as bad as the Republican Party. What a great choice. A choice between the bad and the worst. This country deserves the best. It deserves a broad choice for the people. And people who work in Walmart, McDonald's, Burger King, Kmart, how can they live on what they earn? Union membership is the lowest in 60 years in the private economy. It's less than 10%. And I think it's not just Taft-Hartley, it's the non-enforcement of the occupational safety and health laws. 56,000 Americans die every year from exposure to toxics and other hazards and trauma in the workplace. That's almost 4 times the number of people subject to homicide last year in our country. Terrible toll there, terrible toll there. The parties will not, the Republican Democrat parties will not explicitly stand for universal health care. That's quite clear in listening to their statements and their debates. But the Green Party stands for universal accessible health care with an emphasis on preventing disease and trauma. That's the key emphasis too. These are some of the reasons. These are some of the reasons why the California Nurses Association, terrific progressive union, has endorsed this candidacy of Nader LeDuc, along with perhaps the most democratic national union of all, the United Electrical, Radio and Machine Workers Union, and other large union locals, including the Postal Workers and Teamsters locals in Seattle, Washington, and AFSCME 1108 in Los Angeles. Now, both parties endorsed and support the WTO and NAFTA, which subordinate, deservedly, which subordinate to the imperatives of international commerce, health, safety, considerations in the workplace, environment, marketplace, even existing regulations, as well as improved standards in these areas. That reverses the way we progressed in our country. Whenever we progressed environment, worker safety, consumer protection, motor vehicle safety, abolishing child labor, we basically said to corporations, your profit imperatives got to take second seat. You're going to have to adjust your commerce to these improvements in the health, safety, and economic rights of Americans. And WTO NAFTA reverses that completely. It's trade über alles in a system of autocratic, secretive governance that shuts out the press from the courts in Geneva, Switzerland, and has secret harmonization committees to bring our higher standards downward in harmony with lower standards overseas, because that's what the corporations want. Lower standards, lower costs, no matter what the price is paid by the people who suffer. The Green Party stands for the following: that the United States initiate the provided for 6-month notice to withdraw from GATT, WTO, and NAFTA, and renegotiate trade agreements to pull standards up, not pull standards down, and to do it in a full, open, democratic manner. Both parties ignore the need for the American people to control what they already own as a commonwealth. You know, we own the public airways. We own 1/3 of America, the public lands. Workers own $5 trillion in pension funds. They don't control any of it. Imagine if through intermediate institutions, people controlled what they own. They'd have their own media to give creativity and voice to all the people in this country that want to improve their country, know how to improve their country, but can't communicate to a larger audience. And if we controlled our public lands, we could establish sustainable practices. We could establish multiple function to the use of these public lands instead of the function designed for them by the mineral companies and the oil and gas and timber and grazing interests. And just think if workers could control $5 trillion invested in corporations. A lot of pension funds invested in General Motors, General Electric, General Dynamics. A lot of investment. Now, either they will be able to increasingly control the misbehavior of those companies, or they can develop new investment outlets to use the workers' money for the workers and community benefits for where they live. Both parties do not address the rampant corporate commercialism that is moving in every nook and cranny of our society. Commercialism sweeping everything away in its path, making us feel like everything's for sale. It's like everything's for sale under a commercially dominated society. Our government is for sale. Our democracy is for sale. Our childhood is for sale to these corporate commercial exploiters of young children. Our human genes are for sale. Our personal privacies are for sale. Our right to choose a doctor or hospital of our own choosing, that's for sale. Our environment is for sale. But there's one thing that is not for sale, and that's the Green Party of the United States. Commercialism is sweeping over our schools and our universities, blocking the establishment of civic curriculums where students can learn citizen skills, learn how to practice democracy, connect classroom with the community, concentrate on the reality of life instead of memorization and phony standardized tests that are absurd. Commercialism that distorts university research priorities to bend to the corporate imperative. Commercialism that compromises the independence of our faculty and the free exchange of scientific and other research findings. Commercialism that denigrates the humanities and the social scientists in favor of a massively trade school-dominated higher education curriculum. The Green Party pledges to enforce the antitrust laws of our land. Both Republican and Democratic parties have abetted the massive merger wave in the last 10 years among HMOs and hospital chains and agribusiness giants and telecommunication cable Goliaths, drug company Goliaths, aerospace corporations, military contractors, oil companies, and massive media consolidation. All of these massive mergers would be unheard of 20, 30 years ago. The Democratic Party would have stopped them in a heartbeat. But now the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are taking money from all of these companies and they are giving value received back. Most of them have never seen a merger they didn't like. The Green Party is serious about enforcing the antitrust laws, reducing concentration of corporate power in our country, reducing the pressures on valiant small businesses who are trying to give us better products, more organic food, more recycled products, more arts, more crafts, better service, and they've got these corporations on their back. We got to free small business in this country. And of course, both parties support the utterly failed war on drugs. Where 2/3 of the tens of billions of dollars do not go to rehabilitation of drug addicts. They go to militarizing and criminalizing addiction. We do not send alcoholics to jail, and we do not send nicotine addicts to jail, and we should not send drug addicts to jail. We should have them rehabilitated as human beings in need. The Rand Institute found that treatment was by far the most cost-effective remedy, 7 times more cost-effective than arresting and jailing, and 10 times more effective than interdiction, and 23 times more effective than trying to deal with drugs at their source instead of at the demand level. How many times do we have to have studies like this? And I ask those who support in government the failed war on drugs one question. What is your standard of failure? What conceivable standard of failure would you ever recognize before you revised this cruel, wasteful, and hazardous war on drugs that are endangering our communities, endangering our police, and leaving drug addicts without rehabilitation? The Green Party believes that the thin slice of life around our globe that sustains life on our globe, that few miles of air, water, and soil called the biosphere, must be given priority protection. We must do this by sustainable We must do this for the rest of the world by setting an example, not being the biggest coal-burning country, the biggest nuclear power generating country. We want to set an example, the Green Party does, by setting examples, becoming the leading user of solar energy in the world. By setting zero pollution goals for motor vehicles and industrial activity. There are some companies that have already done that for themselves. The Interface Corporation in Atlanta, Georgia, zero pollution goal. They're on record, and they're moving toward it. Zero recycling. They're the second largest commercial tile and carpet manufacturer in the United States. And they said, we're going to go for zero pollution, and we're going to go for maximum recycling, reduce our costs, and respect the planet Earth. Why aren't they on the national evening news, huh? The Green Party favors more U.S. Department of Agriculture support for organic farming, one of the few ways farmers can make any money anymore. Much more regulatory scrutiny on the most tumultuous, brazen technology in the history of the world. The biotechnology industry that wants to convert the genetic inheritance of the world into their own 17-year monopoly patents. Imagine, this technology, this biotechnology has essentially no regulation, no ethical, no legal framework, and they basically want to control the genetic inheritance of the globe. That's a pretty immodest ambition, and one that must confront a political response with informed scientists, as those who founded the Council for Responsible Genetics in Cambridge, Massachusetts. We need to reassert civilized values over this industry. We also need to let our farmers, at long last, after George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and others grew this product, to at long last allow them to grow industrial hemp. Yes, our country can legally import industrial hemp from France, Canada, and China, but it cannot grow it here because Mr. Clinton, Mr. Gore, and General McCaffrey somehow believe that a plant that can give us food, fiber, fuel, paper without chlorine, lubricants, medicines, and 5,000 other uses that have been developed over 5,000 years, that somehow that is a stalking horse for marijuana. Well, I have news for you, Mr. Clinton, Mr. Gore, and Mr. McCaffrey. At 1/3 of 1% THC, even President Clinton, smoking a bushel of industrial hemp, even if he inhaled it, he'd get no more than a stomachache. We need to highlight good businesses, new businesses that are really doing it right, and the Green Party intends to do that. Whether it's the EEE version, a type of AAA that is ecologically benign and oriented. There's a magazine called In Business that has all kinds of reports on these companies that are very little publicized. There's a effective and accurate way to diagnose long distance when general practitioners tell people, find symptoms in people with kidney diseases, for example, to diagnose these ailments by computer software programs, and nobody's picking that one up either. You know, just all kinds of ideas that are not being picked up because you don't have a political context to highlight them. a political context and not indentured to bags of money at fancy Washington dinner fundraisers. By the way, I just heard someone interested in that software diagnosis. The website is connectance.com. The Green Party, unlike the Republican Democrat Party, addresses the civil servants of our government by creating climates where civil servants, so maligned by political candidates for so long, can bring their conscience to work without fear of retribution or other sanctions. Civil servants, as in the Pentagon, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Department of Interior, and other departments and agencies, know far more about what is wrong and about how to make it right than most anyone else in the country, and they should be given the opportunity and the climate to do that. The Green Party supports a foreign policy that sides with the workers and the peasants in very concrete ways, supporting democratic movements, land reform, credit facilities, cooperatives, free independent trade unions. It's really important to redefine national security in a post-Soviet Union Cold War era. It's important to move while we have such a great opportunity as the dominant power in the world to move more aggressively for global arms reduction, the abolition of nuclear weapons, and to address the serious environmental degradation of our planet, the forests, the oceans, the land erosion, the contaminated water, to launch a massive program against malaria, tuberculosis, AIDS, and other infectious diseases that are spreading all over the world, often in drug-resistant fashion. That is a national security matter, and that's what we should define national security, environmentally and health-wise, and the abolition of poverty. Poverty and repression are national security priorities in a Green Party administration. How many opportunities our country has had and has foregone to lift the spirit and the vision and the stature and the status of people around the world who look to us for this kind of leadership, who saw the Statue of Liberty as a symbol. We have to recover that spirit. We have to think much more highly of our own significance as a nation. We have so much to offer to this world, to this tormented world, to the repressed and the damned and the disadvantaged and the starving, to the people who want a decent life. We have so much more to offer to this world, so much more for you, your young generation, to offer to this world than landmines and napalm and jet planes and tanks and other weapons of mass destruction which make up the global weapons trade. Supporting democratic movements around the world helps liberate the manifold genius of third world peoples, the genius that will be able to come forward, be able to find the solutions, be able to address the injustices. We know that we don't have all the answers, and certainly the IMF and the World Bank do not have very many answers either. But in Brazil, Paulo Freire had an answer. He taught he taught Brazilian peasants how to read and how to be literate in a few weeks in a way that was transferable to all other cultures and languages. Paulo Freire, that was not figured up here down the street by the IMF or the World Bank, was it? And then there was that great people's architect, the late Hassan Fathi in Egypt, who taught impoverished Egyptian peasants how to build small, elegant houses from the soil under their feet. That wasn't thought up either by the IMF or the World Bank to solve one of the world's most serious problems of inadequate housing. And how about those people in Bangladesh who put thousands of women into small businesses in their villages by providing them with microcredit, $100, $200 loans? That would be far too small for the World Bank to pay any attention to, wouldn't it? The Green Party recognizes that every major social justice movement in our history was made possible by a shift of more power to the people, away from the power that the few control. And it's way past time for a shift of power today from big business to the people. When slavery was abolished, shift of power. Women's right to vote abolished. Women's right to vote installed, that was a shift of power. Freedom to form trade unions by workers, shift of power from the industrialists to the workers. When the farmers started that progressive political movement, shifted power from the banks and the railroads to the farm area and gave us political reforms for all Americans to enjoy to this day, 100 years later. Shift of power is essential contention of politics. That's what it's all about. If we don't have a more equitable distribution of power, there's no equitable distribution of wealth or income. And people who work hard will not get their just rewards. And the main way to shift power, if you had to have one reform, it's public funding of public elections. Public funding of public elections. Clean money. Clean money, clean elections. Clean money and clean elections to stop the nullification of your votes by special interest money. Just think of that. You go down to vote, you expect it to count. Millions go down to vote, they expect it to count, and the votes are cut off at the pass by fancy fundraising dinners all over the country where fat cats pay off politicians for present and future favors, and the politicians shake down the fat cats in a kind of combined symbiosis of legalized bribery and legalized extortion. And Senator John McCain condemned this again and again last year, along with Senator Russ Feingold, again and again. This campaign, our campaign has been conducted in an honorable and exemplary manner because we believe if you advocate reforms, you have to practice what you preach in order to preach what you practice. And here's how we've done it. We have campaigned around the country with citizen groups fighting for environmental purity, fighting against poverty, and fighting against racial profiling, and fighting for an urban revitalization policy, for affordable housing, for public transit, against subsidies for stadiums like the Boston Red Sox want up in Boston, fighting for a living wage, fighting to preserve our forests, fighting for all the things that people want and are trying to organize, but they have no political party on their side. Often their political parties are against them. This Green Party is on their side. It's campaigned with them in all 50 states since March. Connecting. When the political movements connect with civic movements, they are more authentic. They are less likely to betray the citizens. They know where they're coming from, and they know where they're heading. And that's what the Green Party pledges to do, to always campaign with the citizen groups on the ground, trying to make this a society of fairness, justice, opportunity, and respect for future generations. Second, we do not take PAC money, soft money, corporate interest money, only individual contributions from all over the country, either by mail by fundraisers that are really political house party dinners, and by transmission by generous donors, individuals, no axe to grind, over our website, votenader.com or votenader.org. That's the way we practice what we preach in order to be able to preach what we practice. It's not easy challenging the entrenched two-party system. They command the statutory barriers to get on the ballot for third parties. They command the money. They command the media. They command the phony debate commission that excludes significant third parties as candidates from being on the debate. And I pledge to you that after this election, we are going to establish next year a People's Debate Commission that is going to break the monopoly of this two-party controlled debate commission forever. When a debate commission excluded me with ticket in hand from an adjoining auditorium in Boston to watch the debate on closed-circuit TV so I could give an interview to Fox News on the premises, when they did that, I said to myself, this is really overreaching. The debate commission threw out the wrong guy. I sued them in federal district court in Boston 3 weeks ago. And by the time we finish with the depositions and release them to the media, the reputation of that debate commission, already low, will be lower than that of a crooked used car dealer. Now, all over the country, people who are supporting us are canvassing, they're organizing, they're having great meetings, they're declaring a moratorium on small talk with their relatives, friends, neighbors, acquaintances, and co-workers, and talking progressive talk, exciting talk, talk about the people shaping the future of our country and the world, not the corporations who are doing it every day. We hope that people who voted for Perot, for Senator John McCain, Bill Bradley, Jesse Ventura type voters, they all had one thing in common in addition to their other reasons for voting, and that is they want to change here in Washington. It's gone too far here in Washington. The two parties have morphed into a corporate party representing the same business interests at the same dinners, at the same hotels, day after day after day. I remember a time when citizen groups could get something done in Washington because they had Democratic Senate and House committee chair people. They had people in the White House who were interested in change. I got the motor vehicle industry regulated so that cars and other motor vehicles are much safer, and the death rate went down like this. You couldn't do that today. This couldn't be done today. None of the progress that citizen groups who are now being shut out of Washington policy-making circles, all the things that they did in the 60s and 70s, you can't get done today. And that's why we really have to go into the political arena, as Thomas Jefferson counseled us so many generations ago, that when we lose our government to the special interests, or as he called them, the moneyed interests, we have to go back and build a new progressive reform movement that remembers what Lincoln meant when he said, toward a new birth of freedom. I hope that those of you who are talking with others who are wavering on the least of the worst or lesser of two evils syndrome will remind them of what Franklin Delano Roosevelt once said when he said, each citizen is equal to each other citizen in the ballot booth where privacy reigns, and they can only answer to their conscience. And a vote for conscience, a vote for your hopes, a vote for your dreams, a vote for a higher expectation level of what our country can become and what it can mean to the world. Those are the votes that you need to register, not a lesser of two evils, where at the end of the day, you're still left with evil. I want to also indicate there are only 10% of the House districts challenged by Green Party. And so where there are no Green Party people on the ballot, vote for the most progressive candidates. Vote for the most progressive candidates and push this agenda and push this corporatized government of ours in the right direction. I want to thank the great staff we have, all the coordinators, the volunteers, all over the country, on hundreds of college campuses, and in the workplace, and the union local halls, and so many other gathering places. So much talent has come out, so many great ideas, so much energy, because they see an opportunity, and they want to grasp it in this election year. I want to end with a quote by Mahatma Gandhi. And I want to have you think about this very closely. And here's what he said decades ago. He listed 7 blunders of the world that lead to violence and injustice. First, wealth without work. Second, pleasure without conscience. Third, knowledge without character. Fourth, commerce without morality. Fifth, science without humanity. Sixth, worship without sacrifice. And lastly, politics without principle. Thank you.
You just came in on a plane.
All right. Okay. Now, we have Cornel West has just landed. He is here. And if you haven't heard Cornel West say a few words, you haven't heard Cornel West. And here he is, professor at Harvard, author of Race Matters, Cornel West.
Ralph Nader, not for sale. He's not for sale. Ralph Nader with Nader, long distance runner for justice, grand captain of the ship of freedom, tied in for equality, brother Ralph Nader, comrade Ralph Nader. We want the word to go forth from this place here and now that we are on the move. We will not be deterred by frightened liberals. We will not be deterred by short-sighted Republicrats. We will not be deterred by mean-spirited neoliberals. We are on the move. Why? We are on the move precisely because we believe that we are at a historic junction. And we're wrestling with a fundamental question. What are the conditions under which progressives will break with the two-party system? And we are being scapegoated, we are being demonized, sometimes every once in a while charitably criticized, but not too often. And we want to say to this nation and the world the first conditions under which we break from the Democratic and Republican Party is that there are democratic energies being unleashed on the ground, not just in the American empire, but around the world. We're part of a global movement. A global movement around the world. It is connected to the plight of Iraqi babies. It is connected to the plight of the Mexican worker. It is connected to the plight of Kurdish brothers and sisters in Turkey and Palestinian brothers and sisters who are being shot by the occupation army of Israel. It is a global movement. It is connected to those brothers and sisters in Africa wrestling with the HIV virus, and we know if it was in London or Paris or Amsterdam, it would be on the front page of the newspaper every day. It is connected to the Colombian peasant as that area of the world is undergoing Vietnamization, given that $1.3 billion. Let us not be deceived. We are turning a corner. And that's precisely why the centrists in the Democratic Party, who more and more lack backbone, milquetoast, unable to stand up for their principles because they've reduced politics to Machiavellian maneuvers and philosophic calculus of self-interest, we say, no, we're Democrats, small d. We're Democrats, small d. We're concerned with what is the relation of public interest to the most vulnerable, children, disabled, workers, black, brown, red, yellow, across the board. And it reflects the second condition, namely the utter decay and irreparable disrepair of American liberalism that can no longer be true to itself. And that's why you end up with a candidate who is unsure of who he is, not because he's evil or a demon. He just doesn't know who he is. He's been trying to please too many people at the same time. He hasn't looked deep into his soul and asked, what are his principles? What are his ideals? And last but not least, we break because of the intolerable level of disrespect that progressives have been shown in the Democratic Party. If you don't deal with workers' rights, if you don't deal with wealth inequality, if you don't deal with the power of police in black and brown communities with escalating levels of police brutality and the criminal justice system, which is itself criminal, and the incarceration of too many young folk, then you're no longer a Democratic Party. That's why we break. And so let us work together, let us stay together, let us fight together. This is a moment in a movement, not just a candidacy and a campaign. We thank Ralph Nader, we thank Winona LaDuke, we thank the Green Party, but we're all in this together. Let us, right on. But I've gone too long and it's time to move to a little art. The greatest playwright in America, Eugene O'Neill, wrote a play called The Iceman Cometh, which in many ways characterizes the election in relation to the two parties. But he raised the question, what does it profit a nation to gain the whole world and lose its soul? And Martin Luther King Jr. raised the question, we're struggling for the soul of America because the vicious legacy of white supremacy and male supremacy and vast economic inequality and heterosexism is suffocating our soul. And when John Coltrane said, we need to ascend to a love supreme, he was not talking about something ephemeral. He was talking about rejuvenating democratic energies. Only when the people have power, only when the people have power, only when the people have power. Let us wrestle, let us stay together. God bless you. We're gonna move Sister Patty and Brother Oliver.
dreaming, well, of an aspect bright and fair. And my sleeping, it was broken, but my dream, it lingered near in the farm of shining valleys, where the pure air recognized, and my senses are newly open, 'cause I awaken into the cry that the people have the power to redeem the work of fools upon the meek. The grace is shower, well, it's decreed, the people rule. Come on! People have the power. People have the power. People have the power. People have the power. Vengeful aspects became suspect and bending low as if to hear. And the armies ceased advancing because the people have their ear. And the shepherds and the soldiers, where they lay beneath the stars, exchanging visions, laying arms to waste in the dust, in the form of shining valleys, where the pure air recognized, and my senses newly open, 'cause I awaken to the cry. Mom, people have the power. People have the power. People have the power. People have the power. Where there were deserts, I saw fountains, and like cream, the waters rise, and we strolled there together, when none to laugh or criticize, where the leopard and the lamb lay together, truly bound. Well, I was hoping, in my hoping, to recall what I'd found. I was dreaming, in my dreaming, God knows, a pure view, as I surrender into my sleeping. I commit my dream to you, people. People have the power. People have the power. People have the power. People have the power. The power to dream, to rule, to wrestle the world from fool. It's decreed, the people rule. It's decreed, the people rule. Listen, I believe everything we dream can come to pass through our union. We can turn the world around. We can turn the earth's revolution. We have the power. People have the power. The people have the power. The people have the power. We have the power. People have the power. People have the power. An honest man. Thank God. People have the power.
People's Parade for DC statehood and peace. Right out front with the brass band and the citizens. Thank you.